Our guest for tonight's program is joining us from the beautiful island of Jamaica, and he is Mr. Odane Brooks. Odane Brooks is a policy and research professional and consultant with the government of Jamaica. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Public Policy and Management and a master's degree in International Public and Development Management. Odane continues to impact lives and is passionate about nation building and demonstrate this through being a Governor General of Jamaica, I Believe ambassador. Mr. Brooks is an active youth development activist at the national, regional, and international levels. He currently serves in several organizations where he used his expertise and experience to develop intervention programs for youth development and engagement. Mr. Brooks currently is the Director of International Relations with the Youth Education Association, country focal point on the Commonwealth Sport for Development Network, former training and development coordinator with the Caribbean Regional Youth Council. Odane also served as director for the program development with the Global Sustainable Development Network, research consultant with UNESCO Caribbean, and also youth initiative coordinator with Advocate for Change Jamaica. Mr. Brooks is also engaged in educational management and currently serves as a board of governor of the Clancarty High School in Jamaica. I want to now invite my guest, Odane Brooks, Mr. Odane Brooks, to the spotlight. It is an honor to have you, Mr. Brooks, because we have the same surname. And I don't want to get biased tonight because of the surname. So I'm going to say welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brooks. I must say, you're reading my bio. I am saying to myself, am I involved in so many things?
Wow. I am actually so much impressed with your bio, Mr. Brooks. And as I said before, I'm hoping not to get biased because of my namesake. But I do understand the Brooks name, the level of determination to succeed that is usually shown by persons with this name. But you have really chalked up some huge successes over time. And so I'm going to go straight into asking you the questions because I do believe that at the end of the program, our guests are going to have many other questions for you. So let me get right ahead because we're actually behind time. So talk to us first about what is your driving force? What led you to this level of success at what appears to be such a young age in life?
Quite an interesting question, and I am still defining what are my driving forces. But I must say that I am from rural Jamaica, and one of the disadvantage, although there are many advantages to coming from the rural side, is that when you're in the rural side, you do not get the exposure that I believe young people is deserving of. And that exposure that I speak to is exposure to mentorship program, developmental programs. And as someone who is from the rural space and coming into Kingston, I have over time developed a zest, I would describe it, to impart development to young people in the rural space. And over time, I have sought to expand my reach to not only the rural space, but to young people in general, because I believe that one of the major challenge that Jamaica faces, and I think it is a regional issue, is that of mentorship and development for young people. And so all of what I have been engaged in, it has been built on the premise of I must be able to impact the life of even one individual. And so that the zeal to impact lives has been what continues to fuel my fire for influence and for empowerment of young people.
Wow, that is so powerful what you have just stated. And as I listen to you, I remember a quote from William Shakespeare. He said, some persons were born great and others achieve greatness. But it does appear to me as I listen to you that you are sitting on both sides. You possibly were born great and you have achieved greatness. Well, let me talk to you a little bit. I'm going to go back because you talk about the rural area coming from there and before you got into the city, into Kingston. Um, Talk to us a little bit because I saw that at Magothy High School, you gained a diploma in humanities and law. You were also head prefect and youth empowerment coordinator. Indeed impressive, and this is what I'm talking about, born great and achieve greatness. Talk to us a little more about those early days. What was going on in your mind as it relates to your future goals? You know, even coming from primary school to Magothy High School, what was going on in your head about your future goals?
I believe that I would describe myself as a late bloomer. I think that at the primary level, I did not evolve into who I am now in terms of I did not shadow that concept of what I wanted my future to look like. But I believe that once I transitioned into Magothy High School, it provided me with a platform, an environment that not only stimulated that aura as to what I can become, but it enabled me to defy stereotypical views of being a student of the Magothy High School. And so if I should provide some context so my audience can follow me along the journey. Magothy High School is what is called in Jamaica non-traditional high school. In other words, it is not one of the preferred high school whenever you're sitting the transitional exam at the end of primary school. And being a student at the Magothy High School, it was always my desire to continuously pursue excellence, to defy the notion that irrespective of where you are planted, you have the ability to bloom. And I wanted that notion to be solidified. Because during my time at Magothy High School, I would have seen several students who society, who the community would have really brushed aside as not coming to anything that is ideal for what society would expect. And so it has always been my mission as a student of Magothy to ensure that I demonstrate excellence. And throughout Magothy High School, it provided me with that platform. And being at Magothy High School, I believe that looking back now, I am satisfied that I was actually a student at the Magothy High School because I don't think the exposure and the zest for success that I developed there, I would have gotten it elsewhere had I been a student of a traditional high school. And so that was the ecosystem that was operating at the Magothy High School that would have enabled me to bloom and to grow into the young man that I am currently. And so I must give all thanks to the Magothy High School for the platform that it would have provided me with.
Wow. Yeah, I am listening to you and I'm really going to get a little bit biased now. Uh, you did say earlier that Magothy was not one of the traditional high school. You also said that there was some kind of stigma, more like, you know, persons are not going to come to anything. And I am so much able to acknowledge that because I have heard and been there And you know, as you talked, I remember another favorite writer of mine, C.S. Lewis. He said that, you know, we can't go back and change anything, but surely we can start where we are and we can change everything. And it appears to me as I listen to you that that is what you decided to do, to go back and to just start where you are and to change everything, regardless of the stigma that was attached to where you were. And so I'm going to ask you a few more questions about how you continue to excel, because I know that, and I'm going to say it almost sounds like you were a genius here, because I saw that in 2019, you graduated from the University of the West Indies with an honors um, bachelor's degree in public policy and management, political science and management. And again in 2021, so that was another 2 years later, you went back and you graduated with a distinction again from the University of the West Indies with a Master's of Science degree in International and Public Development Management. In, I would say, would that be 5 years or 4 years? You came through with an honors degree, bachelor's, and then a distinction master's. Um, Talk to us about what has been your real push. Um, what are your who were your greatest role models? What has been most inspiring to you that kept you going at these high levels of achievement?
So if I should begin, I must acknowledge my parents, the impact that they have had on my personal development. So for some context, my parents would not have benefited from higher level education. And so it was always a mantra of both my parents to inculcate within me and my siblings that education is the passport out of current circumstances. And so from very early, I recognize that if I am to elevate out of the circumstances which I would have been born into, the only vehicle that I have is through education. And so, having that built within me from a very early age, I would have been set on a journey. I would have been set on a journey that propelled me to consistently seek to achieve and to seek knowledge. Because for me personally, education is that ability for you to transform your circumstances, for you to not be one who is fixed to what your circumstances currently is, but it's for you to transform that circumstance into something great. And so that would have propelled me entering into university in 2006. And throughout those 3 years in undergrad, doing my undergrad degree, I would have consistently sought to ensure that I am transforming and building myself throughout the process. And importantly for me, I find that self building becomes personal and it becomes satisfying when you empower others a part of the process. And so I would have sought throughout my university years in undergrad to take individuals under my wing in terms of providing support and mentorship. And so throughout my undergraduate years, I was always destined for to achieve success. And I must say that my earlier years would have played a significant role in that consistency. And I must say, Dr. Brooks, that throughout university, consistency is an important um, action that you must continuously manifest because it is so easy to be sidetracked by the various distractions throughout university. But I sought to ensure that I remained focused and I also looked at the overall personal development, because I don't believe that education is fully manifested only in your academic accolades. But I also believe that education must look at the holistic development of individuals. So I ensured that whilst I am accumulating my own accolades, in the process, I am also mentoring others. I'm also developing others. And so that recognition would have seen me going into some what I would describe as nitty gritty communities in Jamaica, where they are violence prone. They consist of several at-risk youth because of the circumstances that exist in those communities. And so all of my university years, all Saturdays were spent on the ground in various communities, Augustown, Jonestown, and those communities, it gave me, I would say, reason to continue on the path that I am, because my area of study is public policy and management. And I believe that as a policymaker, I am central in the process to transform the lives of people. And what better way to transform lives than to go amongst the individuals you want to transform? And in this quest, I would have led various mentorship intervention programs throughout my university years that sought to provide mentorship and development for young people in some of these communities. Transitioning into my master's program was a representation for me of my continued desire for knowledge, because I don't believe that we stop learning ever. There is this continuous desire to learn and to evolve. And that would have seen me entering into my master's program, continuing on the spectrum of public policy and management, because I have a personal passion for public service. And as I see it as an opportunity to directly impact the lives of Jamaicans, as I would describe myself as a patriot, I am committed to Jamaica. I am committed to utilizing the skill sets that I have developed and honed over time to impact the policy space here in Jamaica so that we can create systems, programs, and policies that can transform the lives of the most vulnerable within our society. So that surmises my journey throughout university and my master's program. Currently, I am just taking a break to refresh and to focus elsewhere before I transition into my PhD program.
I don't know what to say other than wow, wow, and wow. When I started, I told you that I was going to be quite biased tonight because I don't know if it's just the desire or it is just a hint of genius that is rubbed in the Brooks family. However, you have me saying again, Shakespeare said some persons were born great, others achieve greatness. And I do see that it's a little bit of both. Because when I listen to all that you have said, going to university, working in the inner city communities, sticking to public policy. If you have come into the room after we started, I know you want to know who we're talking to tonight. We are talking with Odane Brooks, Mr. Odane Brooks. He is joining us out of Jamaica. We are on the series Men on a Mission, Creating Impact and Influence. And what a way to start the series. We could not have started it any better. Uh, Odane is a public policy professional. He works with the government of Jamaica, and he has done so much more. And we are going to just rush along because there is so much more here to hear tonight. And I see the chat is already burning up, and I want you to continue to drop those comments, questions, whatever it is that you have. Go ahead and put them in the chat because we have to leave some time tonight to ask Adain some of the ear question. Because the first thing I want to ask him, are you from St. Elizabeth? Because if you're from St. Elizabeth, then I know what is going on right there.
I am from St. Elizabeth.
Wonderful. I'm going to go into my next question. And, you know, as I continue to listen to you, Adain, I want to come off a little bit of your studies because you didn't just stop at studying. You went on to start in your own consultancy firm, Brooks Academic Consultancy, providing consultancy to students pursuing master's and PhD programs. At the same time, you were a training and development coordinator at Caribbean Regional Youth Council in St. Lucia. And I want to ask you this question because when I look at everything that you have done, I want to ask you, are you married with children? You have a family, go to church, have church activities. When do you find time to do all of these things? Plus you were studying.
That is something that I'm still trying to find the answer to. At this point, I am not married, so probably that gives me the answer. Um, I'm also a part of a church organization, but I think that for me, I have found the time out of the continued desire that I have to impact the lives of people that I come into contact with. You come into contact with different people, they are operating at different within different spheres and also at different levels. And it is always a beautiful experience to leave an impact in their lives once you come into contact with them. And so I believe that that has allowed me to extend myself into different spheres that enables me to have that desire to impact lives. And I think that's how I've been able to manage up to this point.
Wonderful. You are part of the church, but not yet married. So I do understand that leaves you with some space, some room. So let's talk a little bit about work. I do realize that, and as I go into talking about work, the time changed here in the United States on Sunday. And I'm sure, I'm almost sure that a lot of persons in Jamaica, because we used to have quite a bit of support out of Jamaica. And I do believe that because we are now no longer on the same time, they have gotten the time mixed up because we are now an hour ahead of them, not on the same time as on Sunday. But nevertheless, we are going to carry on. I'm hoping that they still come to catch some of what we have here tonight because this is something that they really need to hear. But I want to go on, Adain, to talk a little bit about work. You have done a bit of work, not just in one second, right? You have done a bit of work here, not just in the areas of your consulting. Let me ask you though, were you in St. Lucia when you did the training for St. Lucia? Were you actually stationed there?
No. So what happened is that within the region there exists what is called a Caribbean Regional Youth Council. This council, it is a regional council that represents and champion the issues important to young people across the region. And so the composition of the council is representative of all the nations within the Caribbean region. So I would have been in Jamaica, but advancing training and development of young people across the entire region.
Wonderful, because I was actually thinking, you know, were you down in St. Lucia, were you doing all of this work at the same time? So I know you hold a significant position in the government as a policy and research professional. And I do understand that based on policies and, you know, things to do with, you know, privacy, you may not be able to talk a lot about what you do, but just tell us a little bit about what this entails, your job that you are at now.
So currently I am at the Department of Cooperatives and Friendly Societies. This is Jamaica's premier government agency that is in charge of providing regulations for the charity sector as well as other societies that are registered in Jamaica. But if I should speak to the charity sector, charity within Jamaica is a massive sector. It contributes significantly to social development and human development. And so my work as a regulator for the charity sector is that I develop policies and systems to make it easier to become a charity in Jamaica, as well as to be regulated as a charity, because what my job primarily focuses on is how the government can become a facilitator of entities, of groups that wishes to impact their communities through various initiatives. And so as a policy and research professional, my job is to ensure that the framework exists to so encourage community activism. And I believe that my job currently, it is satisfying because it allows me to indirectly promote the spirit of people development, because the work of these charitable organizations within communities, they are engaged in various activities, the relief of poverty, the advancement of education. And so I think it was perfect alignment for me professionally to be with the Department of Cooperatives, to have that first-hand ability to be able to impact policies that encourage charity development in Jamaica. Because I believe that if we are to address some of the social issues that we're plagued with, from a government standpoint, we are not necessarily able to respond as a government, but collectively, when you can mobilize communities on the ground, you are able to have far-reaching impact. And I think that the work that I'm currently doing, it is of paramount importance to ensure that we do not kill that spirit of community activism that is important to address some of the problems and challenges that we have in Jamaica and the region alike.
Thank you so much for that, because as I listened, I like the point that you make that the government alone cannot do it. It has to be the government and the people, because together we, the people, are what really make the government to be there. So you also, aside from that, you also are a Governor General of Jamaica, I believe, ambassador. So here we go again with another significant position where you are again building people and changing lives, as I usually call it. Talk to us a little bit about what that entails. How does one get to become a Governor General of Jamaica? Because the Governor General is the highest authority in the country. Am I correct?
That is correct.
And to become one of the Governor General ambassador, that is really a powerful position to hold. Talk to us about how does one get to become that ambassador?
So the Governor General, I believe, Ambassador Program, it is a program that is designated within the auspices of the Governor General's office. The aim of the program, it was actually birthed out of a desire by the Governor General to amplify that there is nothing wrong with Jamaica that cannot be fixed with what is right with Jamaica. And so the program seeks to mobilize young people that represents the right things about Jamaica, and use young people as the vehicle to implement and to champion programs that actually uplifts and mentor other young people. And so the ethos of the program is to use what is right with Jamaica to actually address what is wrong with Jamaica. Because I think that we spend a lot of time focusing on the negatives, but we have to channel some energy in looking at what are the positives that exist and use those positives to unearth more positives. And so this program provides the opportunity for us young people who are active in our communities to be able to provide mentorship and empowerment to other young people through various programs that are developed over time. So that is the essence of the Governor General's, I believe, program.
I rather like how you state it. It is used to possibly identify what is right with by addressing what is wrong with. And that is an excellent way to look at it. So does the Governor General, I believe, program, does it only cover inner cities or wide across the area of Jamaica? Is it just
It,
inner
it,
city communities?
it is wide across Jamaica because how the program is designed, it spans across different parishes. And by virtue of this, it gets a representative sample of young people from different areas in Jamaica to provide mentorship and development because mentorship need is not only within inner city communities, but also within other communities over the entire Jamaica.
Okay, thank you so much for answering that because let me just pause for a moment to say that if you came into the room after we last paused, we are talking with Odane Brooks. Odane is joining us out of the beautiful island of Jamaica, and Odane is one of those men on a mission, building people and changing lives, creating impact and influence. You have heard him. So many powerful work that he's doing, significant areas he is touching lives in so many areas. And as you talked a while ago about the I Believe Ambassador, I and I think that I'm going to ask you that coming up in the question and answer section. So let me hurry on because I know we started late. But there are so many things that are coming to my mind right now. But it does not end there. You also serve as director of program development with the Global Sustainable Network, and you're a research consultant with UNESCO Caribbean, and all of these youth initiative coordinator with Advocate for Change in Jamaica. In a nutshell, help us to understand what all of these entail and tell us. Because as I'm listening to you, I'm wondering if you also have cloned yourself to be able to commit to all of these different responsible positions. How have you been able to do this? Talk to us about these different positions that you hold plus here.
So if I should start with Advocate for Change Jamaica, it is a registered charitable organization in Jamaica, and its primary mandate is to tackle the issue of father absenteeism in Jamaica. We recognize that from a policy standpoint and from a societal standpoint, there is significant focus on the development of women, and that is important given our context. But I believe that inadvertently we have over time overlooked the problematic issue of father absenteeism. And so this organization, its principal mandate is to shed some light on this issue and to develop intervention programs for young teen fathers who might become vulnerable to becoming an absentee father. And through this program, through the organization, various modalities are utilized to provide that coaching to young fathers, to provide that support so that at the end of the day, we reduce the rate of absentee father because absentee fathers is counted as an issue that continues to add to the social decay within the society. So that is the overall focus of Advocate for Change Jamaica. If I should move on to the Global Sustainable Development Network, that it is a youth-led organization again, and its primary mandate is to champion the issues of climate change. And so I must say at this point that my involvement is diverse. I have various passions. And so through this organization, we advocate for sustainable developmental approaches because it is undeniable that climate change presents an existential threat to humanity. And so the work of the organization is to build public awareness about climate change and also to advance community as well as policy actions that can mitigate against the negative impacts of climate change. And finally, as a UNESCO researcher, my primary role is to assist UNESCO in conducting research in communities in Jamaica. And research is important because it allows us to identify what are the issues that are fueling some of the social problems that we are confronted with as a country. And interestingly, tomorrow I will be presenting the findings from a study that I would have recently concluded with UNESCO that looked at the implementation of a security measure by the government and the extent to which that program would have yielded social and human development within the community in which it was implemented. So, in a nutshell, the various initiatives that I am a part of, they're all positioned to tackle some societal issues that we're confronted with and which requires the active involvement of young people who have the zest, who have the energy and the vision to advance these issues so we can address them in the near future as well as to set the stage for those to come.
Thank you so much. As I listened, I said, this is so wholesome and they are so intertwined in one way or the other. They cross over each other. Significant work you're doing down there, Odin. Significant work you're doing down there. Now I do understand when we say man on a mission, creating impact and influence. Those words are small words for what you're doing right there. But talk to us before because I want to leave some time, even though we know we're behind time. I want to leave some time for the audience because I do know that they have questions. Talk to us about what's next for Adain? What's next in 5 years, 3 years, 2 years? As you talked earlier, I was tempted to ask you if um, do you have any intention of going into active politics?
That is a question that I get quite often, but as I say always, I am not opposed to any opportunity to impact my country in a positive way. And so I would not necessarily shut down the idea at this point. But at this point, I am centrally focused on how to develop my capacity to impact the spaces in which I operate, which is primarily the public service. Because I am guided that as a young person, commitment to country is important. And there is a growing level of disaffection among young people with how governments generally are representing the issues important to them. But I have remained committed to the process because I believe that I have something to contribute. And if all of us should move away from the establishment, then I don't think we can impact the changes that we want to see. And so my trajectory for the next 5 years, I would say, is to continuously evolve, to continuously learn, and to utilize the opportunity to enter into different spheres where I am able to develop programs, to develop policies from the standpoint of the government that will have direct benefit to Jamaicans, because I believe that there is currently some amount of disaffection because people have the feeling that the government is not working for them. And I believe that I want to set out on a mission to assist in whatever sphere I am operating, to restore some amount of hope, to restore that belief in being a Jamaican. And I believe that my body of work and the work that I will set out to embark upon will do just that, to start the process of building hope, restoring ambitions, irrespective of where you are in Jamaica. You must be confident that you can achieve whatever you set your mind to. And so that is what the next 5 years will look for me, a process of personal development, because for me to impact the lives of persons, I must be coming from a place of empowerment. And so the next 5 years will be about empowering myself to empower others.
Wow. Wow, wow, and wow. Indeed, not looking back, but moving forward and creating the change that is both needed and necessary. That is indeed huge. We are going to open the floor at this time because I do believe we are right up on the 9 p.m. mark. I do believe that there are comments in the chat and there are persons who do have questions for you, Mr. Brooks. I myself have a question or two that I want to ask outside of those that I have asked you already. But let me open the floor at this time. I'm going to change my view just a little bit so that we can see the virtual hands. Go ahead and place your hand up. I'm sure you have some questions. And put them in the chat if you don't want to ask them yourself, and we will go ahead and ask them for you. All righty, let me see what we do have in the chat here. Education is a passport out of the current situation. That is indeed true and powerful. Education allows us to transform your circumstances to something great. Self-building is satisfying when you empower another during your process. Consistency is an important action. My motto, education is one of the keys to open many doors. I'm just reading what is in the chat here. Um, Someone said, "Sent this, always on the move. Knowledge is power." So let me hear from the audience. The question that you have, I see a hand in the right-hand corner right up there. I'm going to go ahead and take Mr. Williams. I ask you to go right ahead and mute your microphone and present your question.
I must say, well done, Odain. That was a very good presentation. I appreciate your hard work and all that you're doing, and I pray you will get the strength to carry on. Um, you speak of working with the youth and impacting the youth as far as the government is concerned, and some more work from the Governor General's office. But my question to you tonight is, having been exposed, having not been didn't get that exposure, and being a late bloomer, but yet you were provided with the opportunity to grow. Now, on the local level, are you doing anything to help those less fortunate youth on that level where you strive from?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question, Mr. Williams. Um, if I would say what I've been engaged in is to expose young people to what I believe I might not have been exposed to at an earlier age. I would not necessarily say that it placed me necessarily at a disadvantage per se, but I think that the circumstances for other young people might be different. And so the support system that I might have had at a tender age to provide me with that guidance, a lot of young people might not necessarily have it currently.
Yes.
And so what I have been doing over time is to provide that enlightenment, if I could describe it that way. And interestingly, the work that I have been doing has always been inclusive. So it engages young people, but also it engages parents as well, because individuals are operating within an ecosystem. And so the ecosystem must support their elevation, their development. And so, for most of the youth development work that I have been doing, it is to provide that exposure to not only young people, but also individuals within communities that might not have benefited from earlier exposure in their lives. And so, at the end of the day, we create an environment that is conducive to the continuous growth of young people, because I recognize that, especially working in Augustown as well as Jonestown, that what we inculcate in terms of developmental mentorship for the young people, if the parents are not a part of that process, it can virtually be erased. And so we have to bring the adults, senior adults, into the fold as to the development that is required for young people and what role they play in this entire process.
Yes, I appreciate that. And one of the reasons why I asked that question is recently my understanding is that the violence now is moving from out of the city and going into the rural areas. And if these young youth doesn't have the vent or areas to channel them to build them up rather than sending them off into crime or whatever else they find themselves in, because like the general argument is that if you find, they will find work for higher lands. And if you in that position, and I appreciate you for speaking up like that, I really do, and I love it. But we have to look to those. We don't want to lose anyone in the cracks. I think you said, if you can impact one person, and this is where we can make a difference and impact at least one person to move away and get them into a better position where you said the opportunity was there for you to grow at Magati. You was, in a situation where you were a late bloomer, yes, but you grow. Magati provide that space for you. So I'm looking at you and say, wow, you are so in a good position to help those you like yourself who might fall through the cracks.
Absolutely, Mr. Williams. And through Advocate for Change Jamaica, that focuses on father absenteeism in Jamaica, we're consistently confronted with these issues in rural Jamaica. Because
Yes,
while the situation in the urban space might be different, what we're seeing is that the social conditions in the rural space is deteriorating at a rapid pace, and
yes,
that community that usually raised the child is no longer present. And so we have to see how we can restore that collective thrust towards raising the child, and how we can ensure that we curtail the deterioration in the family structure, because once family units are weak, then the society starts to wither away. And so we have
yes,
to consistently work to respond to those social challenges. And father absenteeism is presenting as one of the most
yes,
significant challenges, especially for young men who require role models who they can look up to, who they can draw inspiration from. And so it is a real issue that you have touched on, Mr. Williams, and it is something that I believe we consistently need to focus on. And as I make another point before I wrap, I believe that over time we have to shift some of the focus that we place on youth development being so centralized in the urban space,
yes,
because what we have seen over time is that inadvertently there are cracks breaking out in
yes,
rural areas, and we're not getting that similar energy in terms of
yes,
intervention. So we most definitely have to shift the focus to rural Jamaica as well.
yes. Thank you, sir. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Excellent response. Excellent response. I see another hand, Joan. Go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Brooks, I'm so impressed. Are you hearing me, Jenny? Everyone hearing me?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
We
We're
are,
hearing you.
Yes,
miss.
yes,
I
Thank you
am
so much.
so impressed. Your presentation was sterling, so
Thank you.
articulate, so everything. My head is, like we would say in Jamaica, grow big. I'm very, very proud of you. And I agree with everything you said, more so pertaining to trying to help those misfortunate young men or men who become parents at a young age and not and will probably end up being an absentee father. But whatever you said, you have to focus on the parents. How is that working? Because I know um, I'm retired, but my former job was to get parents involved in all aspects of their children's being from whatever it is. And that was such a hard struggle for me. It was
It
so
is.
hard, but you always hear that if you get one, then that's not failure. But how is it working for you in Jamaica? Very, very,
Absolute.
very tough for me, for us here in the United States, where we have everything free, everything is just, we're just begging. They get food, they get whatever, give out everything. And it was still a struggle.
It is a similar plight here in Jamaica. And I think because of the socioeconomic conditions, parents are so stretched in terms of balancing, maintaining the household economically, and also tackling those parental issues. And I think we have to get into a new dispensation where we empower parents, because one of the things that I have recognized is that the families that are having the challenges, it is a generational issue. And so it is a case where the previous generation did not benefit from development, it did not benefit from mentorship. And so the current generation continues on that trajectory. And so I think that, and from the work that I have been doing, it has been to focus on bringing that sense of enlightenment to parents, that although they are so stretched in terms of satisfying the economical needs of the family, they also have to focus on the parental side, which does not necessarily focus much on resources per se, but just being present as a parent. And so we have to continue the dialogue and the mentorship, because I believe that knowledge will move mountains. And I think that once we continue that intervention and that support for parents, we can yield results over time.
Thank you for your answer. And I understand exactly what you're saying. They are busy, they are stretched to provide for their family, resulting in them not being able to get this information that they badly need to get the next generation out of their plight.
Absolutely.
But I'm just saying it's really a hard task. So it's
It
really,
is.
really a difficult task because you're so invested, and most of us who do this sort of work is invested. It's not about the pay. We just want to make that change. And you pull out every ammunition you have. And in the United States, you might say, well, they would give, the parents here would probably get more support in terms of economics and so on. They still think because they were so deprived of not having, they're killing themselves trying to provide what they didn't have for their kids instead of, just being satisfied with that $10 less to come to a meeting that would help to encourage them and apprise them of what they really, really need to do to get their kid out of the rut that they're in. So I'm just saying, don't give up. But I'm telling you, I lift my hat to you, and you just can't give up. It's a hard task, but it's something that we need to do if we want to make changes in everybody's life, more so in the lives of our men. So
Absolutely.
proud of you, bad, bad, bad. So articulate. You
Thank you
should go and
so much.
also teach the English language. Impeccable.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. John, did you notice that his surname is Brooks?
I certainly did. I certainly did.
All right. So,
How
so
could
I,
I not?
I want to ask a question, Mr. Brooks, because someone would say that policies are sometimes just in the corporate offices, but when it comes down to the ground. So what I want to ask you, how do you cover is it 13 or 14 parishes? How do you cover? Do you have like a representative in each major city, major town? How do you cover the entire island?
You have raised an important issue that, as a policy practitioner, both in practice and in theory, as an academic, that continues to occupy my mind. And it focuses on how we can shift the policy domain from being what I would describe as a top-down approach, where we develop policies from central ministries to respond to problems at community levels, oftentimes devoid of the actual issues that are actually operating on the ground. And so, from a philosophical standpoint, I have sought to frame my thrust in the policy domain towards ensuring that we engage with citizens before we seek to develop policies that is supposed to impact their lives. Because I believe that if we should look at the development trajectory for the Jamaican society for the last 60 years, it has often been policies that are not responsive to the needs of citizens. And that is primarily because those policies were developed using blueprints that are not representative of what the issues are at the community level. And so we must move to a new dispensation. And I'm seeing some glimmer of hope of that, where we move to a period of a bottom-up approach where we do community engagement with people to hear what are their issues, to hear what are their views on problems that they're facing. And then we craft policy solutions that adequately responds to what the community issues are, because we don't want to create solutions that inadvertently creates unintended consequences. And so it is important that we get that philosophical transition. And it has been what has been guiding my own approach towards policy development. And especially because I work so closely with charitable organizations that are operating within Jamaica. Because at the end of the day, charities are operating on the ground. We have to recognize what their realities are.
Wonderful. That is such an excellent response to the question. And I know Dr. Bass is in here and she works with United Nations. And I know she had actually supported one of the Jamaican ambassador, I believe Governor General Ambassador, who came on this program at one time with some tablets and those things for the children in the inner city communities. And that was, the major part of my question, because sometimes the policies are written just for that office, or, because it needs to be written, but it's not passed down. And just to share that part of what I'm involved in here in the United States is actually at-risk support for at-risk kids. And what I find here is that there are many organizations. For example, I work with City of Columbus, Ohio, with at-risk kids, and it's different nonprofit organizations that come together to sponsor these kids, to come to these support sessions where they can get mentorship and guidance and coaching. So that is also something to look at, not just to have the policies in place, but to ensure that they get to the ground. Support groups in each cities and communities. But I want to commend you again for the work that you're doing. I didn't even imagine that you were doing half the work that you were doing. I really, really commend you for the work that you're carrying out down there. And I know we are well past time, and so I want to give you your final words. Oh, Dr. Bass has a question. Or a comment. Go ahead, Dr. Bass. Is it your clapping or your hand is up?
I was clapping for him because being a public policy myself is not something is that easy, because you can write the policy, the implementation is harder than writing the policy. Sometimes you got the good intention, you want the policy, you wrote it, you say, this is what I want, this is the way I want the policy, you give every single step. But when you implement it, to put action to it is harder, because sometimes the 2 and 2 not equal 4. Because the government says something, the public says something, the receiver himself says something else. It is, that's why I applaud you, because you're in the tough position. People may not understand, because what you see outside, that's why people see, but they don't know. how many times you're not going to sleep, how long you have to withdraw, how long you have to, you even say, you bring the policy, you can bring something, it's like, they got like 200 pages. The policymaker tell you the first draft was okay. And when you put it down, they tell you though, paragraph 6, paragraph 7, paragraph 8, it's like you have to start over. You have to start over. And as anyone, if I have to choose right now, because that's what I do public policy administration, that's what my PhD on. So if I have to do right now, I will not choose it. And I think it was a setup because I was in the law school. The send me, they say, I'm going to be sue, kill, who been broke. Because I couldn't put the 2 and 2 for the unjust system. And they give me a scholarship to learn public policy and administration. They say, you are a lawyer, international lawyer without a bar certificate. That's why your PhD will be, because you will put your mouth in every single aspect of policy and government, public affair, global affair, foreign affair, international law, all will be on your shoulder. And sometimes you will feel powerless. I don't want you to be discouraged. I come a long way. I've been on it for 20 years. If it is, you will cry, you will hate yourself, you will curse, you will not understand you will ask yourself, why I'm put myself into. Do not discourage. It's a great feel to know you helping. You not try to be like I was telling myself, I'm not trying to be Jesus. I'm not trying to be Mother Teresa. I cannot do none of that. But if you can make one person life better, you're a winner.
Excellent points, Dr. Andres. And
Amen.
so thank you so much again,
Amen.
Mr. Odane Brooks, for coming on the Fireside Chat and for sharing so profoundly about the work that you are doing. This is truly significant. And so I'm going to give you the final words to take us out of here tonight. What would you want to leave with your audience?
Thank you so much, Dr. Brooks, for extending an invitation. I think before we became acquaintance on LinkedIn, I would have first met you through your interview with late journalist Ian Boyne on a profile some years ago. And that interview remained with me throughout those years because for me it spoke to triumph, it spoke to passion for development for not only yourself but also for people. And despite the circumstances at the time, you would have prevailed. And so I must thank you for being a beacon of hope and inspiration for young people like myself. I would want to thank the audience for sticking with us as well. Dr. Brass, it is, she would have provided some insights which I can certainly relate to in terms of the challenges which I will face in public policy, and I'm already facing them, but I am not daunted. And as I close, I want to leave with the audience is to reiterate something I said earlier, that if it's even one life you are able to impact, do not look at it from a numerical standpoint. Look at the generations to come that you would have transformed, you would have impacted. So if you are not currently engaged in your community, irrespective of the scale, irrespective of the magnitude, get involved in your community and to impact some life in a positive way, because no man is an island, and so no man really stands alone. We should be our brothers and sisters keeper. I have committed myself that I am committed to the advancement of humanity. And I believe that if we had that thrust across the world, we would have greater global peace and unity. And that is what I want to leave with the audience tonight.
Excellent. Thank you so much once again, audience. We want to thank you once again for always showing up to the fireside chat. This is where we build people and change lives. This is where we are each Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. And I also want to remind my audience from out of Jamaica that the time has changed. We turned the clock forward on Sunday. And so we are now, I'm coming from the state of Florida, and we are now 1 hour ahead of your Jamaican time. So when it's 8 p.m. for us, it will be 7 p.m. for you. Next week, we have another interesting and exciting program when we will be sharing with another guest here on the fireside chat. And please mark your calendar for March 29th, because we will be culminating the sessions of the powerful women, women of influence and impact, where all 4 women who shared in that series will be back in the room at one time with their audience. And so we're asking you to invite everyone to come back on the 29th as well, when we will be having a special program, all 4 women who shared in that series. And we want to have the same again when the men's series is done, where we bring all the men back in the room at one time. As a matter of fact, I am praying that the men's series will go longer than the women's series, because many a time we have focused on the women and we have left the men behind. And so we want to ensure that we have at least 2 full months of men on a mission, impacting impact and influence. And what a better way to start it than we did today. And so we're going to have Mr. Brooks back in the room when we culminate the sessions somewhere down in April, thereabouts. But please invite someone to be on the fireside chat with you each Tuesday, because as I said before, this is where we build people and change lives. Once again, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Thanks to our guest. God bless you, and you all have a wonderful night.
Have a good night.